Appreciate each one of y'all. So, welcome to today's training session, Telling Youth Stories with Justice. Some, webinar logistics here. Please mute yourself, at all times unless you're called upon, during a question. Use a chat box for questions, aha moments, if you want to share some resources, anything. And, you can also raise your hand too, during in this format. Towards the end, we do have a evaluation that we want you all to complete. If you want to see more of this or if any other training topics that you're interested in, we always read these evaluations. Any additional questions, please wait until the end. We will have a moment after the panels to ask questions, but all other questions, please wait until the end. And most importantly, things happen kind of like earlier today with the Dixie music. Just give us some grace, some space, and importantly, have fun and learn. This is our team, the Maryland Mentor team. We got a few people from our team on today. We got Sadiq Ali, our executive director. My name is Sada Haila, the operations manager. And we have our lovely, great, awesome Vistas, Olivia James, marketing communications, Dakota Shamblin, our program outreach Vista, and Antoine Baguette, our Baltimore City Schools mentoring Vista. So I'm sure those who have joined us in previous trainings, you can give this spiel on your own. But for those who are new, Maryland Mentor, a little about Maryland Mentor. We are one of 26 affiliates of National Mentoring Partnership. We work with over 200 programs across the state of Maryland, as well as now we're working with DC programs. So we have this mission of increasing the quantity and quality of mentoring relationships, as well as closing that mentoring gap. So how do we do this? We offer free technical assistant consulting. We have these types of trainings. We're always continuing to elevate the field of having just different events, just to continue letting folks know the importance of mentoring. And, we all want y'all to see Maryland Mentors kind of the umbrella of mentoring, and, reach out to us or if you need any resources, if you want to collaborate, that's what Maryland Mentor is here for. And without further ado, let's introduce Sadiq Ali to give us a little bit of the session framing of today's training. All you, Sadiq.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sada. And again, welcome to everyone. We're super excited from this conversation. And, one of the key things that I want to highlight that Sada just mentioned, just in terms of, how we do what we do and why we do what we do as Maryland Mentor, one of the key things that we hope is illustrated today is that, while Maryland Mentor, we have a distinct expertise just in terms of mentoring program best practices and working with programs to build capacity and sustainability and to overall support the increase of quality mentoring. All that being said, though, we are still, as Maryland Mentor, again, you saw our tiny team, and then by extension, we also have 14 consultants that we work with as well. But by extension, we still are not the keepers of every single bit of knowledge and expertise. And today, this session is really no different, as we illustrate that by bringing you all a group of, again, just amazing youth as well as adult experts, practitioners in the youth media field. And we're just so excited for you all to be able to hear from them. And that's part of our role as well, is to also lift up amazing work that we see out in the field and to provide this platform for sharing across programs, right? Because that's the other kind of key thing to note, is that each one of you all as attendees and practitioners, et cetera, are also experts in your own right and have a lot to share, et cetera. So just going forward, FYI, we're going to be doing even more of these types of sessions where folks get to share from peer to peer, right? Not just top down as if, me or the rest of our team have every single one of the answers. We have some of them, but anybody, as you all know, anybody who says they got all the answers, you should do one thing and one thing only, that is run in the opposite direction. Because if everybody or one person had all the answers, damn if we would not have the issues and challenges across this planet that we do. It's going to take all of us bringing our unique vantage points, perspectives, and expertise in order to get us where collectively we want to go. So we just want to make sure that we lift that up and highlight that as well. So let's jump in. A little bit of session framing before we get into this panel, which I'm so excited about. So I'm going to try to be brief here. So I think by now everybody has probably seen this quote, right, as it pertains to narrative and storytelling. And it goes like this: until the lion learns to write, it will always be the hunter who is the hero. And we wanted to start this conversation off today with this quote because it says so much, and there's different versions, interpretations. One variation of this quote is, until lions have their own historians, right? The story will always glorify the hunter, and there's lots of variations. But at the end of the day, what this quote is really talking about is who owns narrative, who owns storytelling. And in the practice of, not just history and historians, there's also the practice called historiography. And I know some of us have heard about historiography, but it is a very, very specific discipline of really sociology, in fact, that studies how and why history gets written as it does, who it benefits, who are the keepers of the right way of these different stories, et cetera. So we wanted to do our best to start the conversation around a really, really simple idea. And that is, again, who owns narrative, who owns stories, and why that is important. And again, it is definitely connected to the idea and the discipline of historiography, which I encourage all of us to continue to dig into. But, history is normally written from one vantage point, which is why much of the work that is done by these amazing organizations is so powerful and prevalent, because it involves alternative perspectives. It involves lifting up a lot of the stories that oftentimes we don't get a chance to hear. And many times we don't get a chance to create and put our own selves in that driver's seat. So wanted to start off with that. Why justice and storytelling? So a little bit of additional background is that this topic actually came to us. So again, Sada was not blowing hot air. That's normally me who does that, but she was not blowing hot air when she spoke about the fact that we really do take feedback from the field seriously. So this topic, literally, whoever you are, I hope you're on this session with us, but this session really grew out of feedback that we received as we asked, as we always do, what topics really interest you? What things would you like to hear about? What conversations would you like to have? And literally somebody in one of the evaluations, they were like, man, let's talk about youth justice and storytelling. We were like, oh my God, that's an amazing conversation. And we went back as a team. Where the heck do we start? That's not really what we do. So we said the best place to start is with our partners that, again, are doing amazing work in that regard. So we just wanted to lift that up. Like, whoever you are, show yourself in the chat box so we can thank you publicly. But again, this topic, for all of our, what we think of ourselves, we did not come up with this idea. This idea was generated from the field. But this session also represents Maryland Mentors. For those of you all who have been following along with us over the last several weeks, this session is really, again, just another stop along our continuum and our commitment to bringing more sessions, offering different vantage point and resources and conversations that center on equity, centering youth voice, and really challenging us to look at different ways versus how we've always done things, right? Anti-racism. So we've done sessions on eliminating white saviorism and mentoring. We're currently running an anti-racism and equity in youth programming cohort called Moving Towards Liberation. We facilitated a session with one of our other amazing partners, Talbot Mentor. Shout out, I see you, Jasmine, is with us today from Talbot County, Maryland, right? That session was all about how to have conversations about race with your BIPOC mentee. So this is what we're committed to doing. Like, we can't have a conversation about mentoring any longer without having a conversation about systems and how critical it is to make sure that critical consciousness is a part of every conversation that we have with young people, as well as we're talking about young people, right? Because those of us that have been in this work for a while know that it's disingenuous, it's dangerous, and outright disrespectful to think that all we need in order to solve our problems is just give these young Black kids or these young brown kids or these poor kids, let's just give them more mentors. That's all they need, man, and then all will be well. And that is by no means accurate. Mentoring is a part of a puzzle. It's a part of a continuum of wraparound services and supports that are necessary. So that's a little bit about sort of our overarching commitment to doing more of this and continuing this. But we also know that stories are central to building relationships. When we're having conversations with our young people, they don't relate to a whole bunch of don't do this, don't do that. They relate to the stories of you telling them how you messed up in the exact same way. That's what they relate to, right? Stories are how, right, we give data, all this data that we collect. That's stories are how we give that data soul and how we bring that to life. So stories are critical. And then also, we wanted to be able to give, again, concrete examples of how we can use stories as a tool to dismantle current systems, right? And really shed light in areas that, again, the light doesn't often shine, but we know there's light there, but we have to, again, be in a position to allow that light to shine through. Couple more items here. Traditional storytelling elements, right? We wanted to make sure that we started off with this as a baseline as well, right? There's always a message, some sort of conflict. There's some characters, there's a plot, but the justice element in all of that is sometimes what gets tangled up and left behind and not really addressed. And that's what, again, hopefully today's conversation, and we always like to start off our conversations and our sessions as well as in 90 minutes, please, for anyone, let me just let me let you down slow and easy, right? We're not going to fix it all today. This is the beginning of a conversation that when we get to the calls to action section of our session today, this is but a starting point that we hope you all carry on with the young people that you work with inside your staff meetings, et cetera. How can we use today as a jumping off point? We're not going to fix it all today. We're not going to fix it all tomorrow, but how can we take some of what we talk about today and move forward? Lastly, essential components of liberation. We wanted to lift these up early, and we'll also lift these up often as time goes on. But these liberation or essential components of liberation as a means to justice as well, or should I say justice being an essential component of liberation, these essential components were adapted by the work of one of our dear sisters and collaborators, Adara Ayera, of Ayera Core Concepts, formerly of Associated Black Charities here in Baltimore, as well as she's one of the founding members of BRJA, which is an amazing organization based here in Baltimore, Baltimore Racial Justice Action, who have dedicated their entire existence to education in the area of anti-racism and equity. And most importantly, again, the action part is putting these principles in action. But these components are releasing denial, they're resisting compromise, they're knowing and understanding history from the point of view of those oppressed. This is critical. And this is back to one of the initial points around the historiography lens, right, of history as an overall tool, right? Because history as currently constituted is a tool. And then history is comprised of a bunch of stories, right? Some of those stories start off as like myths and legends. Somebody does some research. We put some names, some dates. It becomes fact. But somebody had to put pen to paper in order for that to happen. And very rarely is it ever from the POV of those that were oppressed and not in the driver's seat. Unlearn what you think you know, which is the deprogramming aspect. Because a lot of times, again, that's the power of stories as well. Because most of the time, I know we've heard this, right? After somebody tells their story, you like, oh my God, I didn't know. That's the point. That's the point. You didn't know. And until we share and get comfortable with sharing, we won't know. Working to dismantle oppressive systems, structures, and cultures in the industries in which we work, including elements of repair, which is, right, that's the cousin of justice. You can't have justice without repair. You cannot have justice without repair. And then lastly, an essential component is, again, focusing on self-healing and expanding outward, right? Starting with self. Storytelling as a means to healing self and then expanding outward. So that's a little bit of session framing for today. Please drop any any comments or questions in the chat box. And we're going to jump right in. Oh, there's some additional ideas. Oh my God. All right. We're just going to sit these here and just let y'all read these. But I've already actually covered all these, right? Central idea, who owns narrative? This second bullet point is critical. And this is why we were so excited to bring young people to the table today. But we got to challenge ourselves just generally on moving away from the idea that young people are only experts in being young. Like, young people have a variety of areas of expertise just like adults do, and it comes from that lived experience. But when we only like invite them to panels to talk about the perils of being young instead of allowing them to tell their stories holistically in a three-dimensional fashion, not just as members of a program, right? Not just as, vessels of pain, but like holistic, fully grown beings already that are still developing just like the rest of us are. And then these get to this last point. Stories too often focus on young people as problems to be solved. Again, and instead of them being taken as partners and architects of their own destinies. We think that this is critically important. And without further ado, we're going to jump into this panel.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Sadiq. So as Sadiq said earlier, we as Maryland Mentor, we're aware of like our strengths and weaknesses, and also what we can learn from. So this is why we collaborated with 3 different organizations. Look at that magic. And each one of our panelists are going to introduce themselves. First off, we have Reflection of Kings. Jabril, you on?
You was going in and out. I couldn't hear what you said. Can you say it again, please?
Yeah, you can introduce yourself to our audience today.
Oh, my name is Jabril Yasin, and I'm from Reflection of Kings.
And Bobby.
Good afternoon, folks. First want to thank Maryland Mentor for having us and for the invite. My name is Bobby Marvin Holmes. I'm founder of Son of a Dream and co-founder of Reflection of Kings.
Thank you. Next up, we have Wide Angle Youth Media. Janae.
Hi, everybody. My name is Janae Young. I'm a senior at Baltimore School for the Arts, and I'm a youth with Wide Angle Youth Media.
Hello, my name is Destiny Brown. I'm a former student apprentice at Wide Angle Youth Media and current producer and media instructor.
Okay, thank you. GB Youth Media, Kimani.
I'm Kimani Bone. I'm a freshman at Blake High School, and I'm from Gandhi Brigade Youth Media.
Thank you. Sharika?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sharika Mosley, and I am the program manager and teacher here at Gandhi Brigade Youth Media.
Thank you all. Thank you all. So yes, it is a panel, and I'm seeing the chat, hearing the voices of our youth. People are excited to hear this. And of course, the adults, the supporters of our young people today. So let me put everyone to the spotlight.
Let's give these panelists, right? Let's show love right off top. Let's give these panelists a round of applause in the chat box. Make some noise, right? Because that's one element that we haven't gotten to yet, but I know it'll come up. But it takes courage to share your story as well, and it takes courage to get up in front of a panel of 70-something folks as well. So shout out to our panelists. We're super excited.
Cool. So we're gonna get started in 1 second. All right, is everyone ready? Ready? Yeah? Cool. So I'm gonna start off with asking our young people this question, and this is for each person. We're gonna start off with Jabril, Kimani, and Janae. So why is it important for you to tell your own story? And Jabril, you're gonna lead this question.
I'm sorry, it cut out again. I didn't hear what you said.
Sorry about that. Why is it important for you to tell your own story?
I feel as though it's important for me to tell my own story because if nobody else, because who else will tell it for me? Nobody else will tell my own story, and it's not gonna get around for other people to hear it, to inspire other people. So I can't just not say nothing about it and just let it sit there.
Thank you, Jabril.
Oh.
That's totally true. Tell your own story. Kimani, same question for you as well. Why is it important to tell your own story?
Well, my specific story is I am a child from an Indian mother and a Guyanese father, and I want people to realize that I am just as smart as everyone else and I have an equal chance to succeed.
Thank you. I hope we get deeper into that that first part of your narrative. Thank you, Kaman, for sharing that. Janae, same question to you. Why is it important for you to tell your own story?
I think it's important to tell my own story because leaving it in the hands of other people will always be a disservice to me. Everything is from my perspective. I can't leave my perspective, my lived experiences up to other people because despite them being able to relate to me, they didn't go through the situation as me. So I can only tell my story from my lived perspective.
And that's the theme of today's panel. Go ahead, Sadiq.
Nah, listen, we off to a great start already. So following up on that, in no particular order to our adult panelists, knowing the responses that we just heard from our young people, what have you all learned about the power of allowing, right, and supporting, not even really allowing, because I don't like that word, right? Because again, that's more the power dynamic and a power balance. But what have you all learned about sharing the platform, sharing the stage, and supporting young people and telling their own stories and owning their own narrative?
I can start with this one.
Please, Destiny.
Yeah, because I consider myself like an adult youth because I'm still in that like little middle ground. And Wide Angle was the place where I really found my voice, and that I had it before, but it really took an organization to give me the skills and tools I needed to really spread that voice and feel secure in how I felt. And so now in college and able to see other youth go through that same experience I had, it's so encouraging and makes me feel optimistic about the future because these youth are so smart. I learn so much from the students every day, and they're so intelligent. And just to see the power in giving them a platform to just say what's on their mind is so powerful. So I've seen it firsthand as my lived experience and also in my students.
That's awesome. And I don't know why I thought you had just graduated, Destiny, but yeah, you definitely the older youth. That's good. We like that. That's like a double whammy, a double positive. Thank you so much. You hit on some amazing points just in there. Again, organizational responsibility to build the skills and confidence necessary to feel courageous enough to tell your story. That was a gem right there, y'all. Our organizational responsibility is to build those skills and confidence so our young people feel comfortable in doing it. Sharika, Bobby?
Yeah, I can speak on that. So our organization, that's basically what we do is teaching them the skills as far as digital media, so film, graphic design, and photography. And so a lot of these kids come in wanting to learn these skills, wanting to get to express themselves in their craft, but just not knowing how to. And so by giving them these different topics and assignments, focusing and circulating around social justice, allows them, like Destiny said, to have that confidence and also to be able to express the different issues that are happening in their country. Because a lot of the students are first generation students. And so it allows us to know what is happening back home for them as well.
I love it. Yeah, please, Bobby.
Oh, well, for sure. For me, what I say to that is, to whom much is given, much is required. I gotta first lift up my mentors that orientated me and socialized me as a media professional, as a young man. I have to lift up Roderick C. Willis, who was the brother that was responsible for helping me get my first article published when I was 19. I have to lift up Frank Brown, who was one of my journalism professors in undergrad. I have to lift up Donnie Glover, who orientated me as an entrepreneur in the media realm. So, it was an obligation based on what those brothers did for me that I pass the baton and do it for other young brothers. It was a requirement, an expectation for me to do so. And from that experience, what I learned, it wasn't a matter of me learning. it was a matter of me being reminded of what can happen when we give youth the opportunity to shine. What can happen when we give the youth the opportunity to make an impact in their community. It was something that I was orientated in, and something that I've been doing with youth for years. And I was only reminded with Reflection of Kings, the power of it.
That's super dope, Sharika and Bobby, and Destiny. Thank you all so much. I just heard again storytelling, Sharika, as an education tool. What's going on back in folks' home country, right? What's going on with folks' family? Storytelling and narrative is that, and then Bobby paying it forward, right? This can't be a Maryland Mentor event. So thank you for opening that up, right? This can't be a Maryland Mentor event without us talking about mentoring and how we planting those seeds for folks, the young people that we working with, to be able to do the exact same thing, but bigger and better for the next generation.
So one of the things that organizations and people, right, they tend to omit is stories of race. So this question's for all the youth, in no particular order. How do you feel about the way that Black youth are portrayed in the media?
It's really hurtful. A lot of the time we're demonized and like seen as like dangerous and negative. And media is such a powerful tool because it has the power to influence like people's minds. You know, you take away stuff unconsciously as you see media, and it's like put in your face all day. Like there's news on 24/7. So you absorb these things, whether you want to or not. You take these things with you and you carry them. And so it's like just as powerful as like making a law. Like it influences stereotypes that are like already pushed in your face all day, like angry Black woman or like dangerous Black man. Those are connotations that people uplift, whether it's within movies or on the news, and just like unconscious bias that is underlying in a lot of the media that we absorb today. So I think it's really important to push positive stories so that we move away from those negative stereotypes, because they're awful and they create situations that are beyond us, and they contribute to other issues within the Black community and with marginalized groups that way.
And before I get to Kamani and Jabril, Janae, how can we push those positive stories? What are some methods that you can, share with us?
One way, like write them. Like a lot of the times negativity sells. And so people move away from like writing a positive story because they know it might not have as much success. But the more we write them and the more we push them, the more people will see them and absorb. There can be fun and interesting stories that are positive and uplifting and putting people, especially overlooked communities, in positions of power. Because we see all these movies, especially with Black movies, the slave narrative, we see it all the time, or some like, negative stereotype that's usually pushed within the movie. So, or you have Black actresses and Black actors, but a room of white writers. So putting people in those positions that are really important, like throughout the process, make sure that you're consulting people who are in that position and know, what's happening, because then you'll have an authentic representation on the screen.
Yeah, and you basically summarized, the African proverb that Sadiq shared with us, right? Until the lion learns to write, it will always be the hunter who is the hero. So you're absolutely right. Kamani, the question similar to you.
Can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah. So how do you feel about the way Black youth are portrayed in the media?
I feel like it should be changed. But Janae basically summarized legit everything. So there's not much to say, but I do feel like it should be changed. There should be more positive things and all the smart things that people do in the Black community, and all the kind things and the uplifting things, helping around everywhere. And it's not really shown. Only the bad things are shown to people. And that's what the vibe gives off. Oh, and that's what everybody thinks. I think I muted myself.
Thank you, Kamani. Jabril, same question to you as well. How do you feel about the way Black youth are portrayed in the media?
I feel as though the media as a whole really don't have nothing positive to say about the Black community in general. So the black people, regardless what we look at from the media's point of view, as our black males are gangbangers, our women look this certain type of way, we're not able to do this and that. So regardless of anything, I really just think don't have nothing positive to say about the black community in general.
If you can share one positive thing that you want people to hear about Black youth, if you can do a quick one sentence that you can share out, what would it be? Something positive.
Something positive, I would say programs like Refreshing the Kings. That's what I am. It's like we none of us in there. We not no gangbangers, stealers, thieves, or none of that. We black youth that's explaining and going over topics and discussions in our community, in our city. And we just try and show things in a positive manner.
Thank you. Thank you all.
That's so powerful. Just dovetailing into that, Jabril, the fact that you all are interested in that, when again, the media and traditional storytelling will be like, oh, Jabril, and again, I don't know Jabril, but you know, maybe he does like basketball. I like basketball too, but that's not all that I like. I had many, many different interests, many different intellectual pursuits, etc., besides just being the one thing. So I think that's such a powerful point, Jabril. Thank you for that. Back to our adult panelists. So again, I think this is the perfect sort of segue from Sada's last question. But you know, this idea of narrative appropriation, back to the hunter telling a story, right, instead of the lion. This idea of narrative appropriation, right, and people, Janae hit on it as well. When I'm the one that's telling a story, maybe it just suits me more if I just keep telling these you know, the slave narrative, right? If I keep just showing the gangbanging narrative, that right. So this whole idea of narrative appropriation is still happening. How do we fight against that? How do we fight against that?
I can start if you guys don't mind. So something that I've been hearing quite a bit, and I'm sure you all have been too, is this, you know, Black and brown people are not monolith. A lot of the experiences, not everybody's sharing the same experiences. And so just from our organization standpoint, just allowing them to one, focus on a subject, and then having them create that narrative themselves to be able to say, you know, and write and say and tell that story in their own way. And so just this whole, back to your question of the appropriation, it does become quite old seeing what is supposed to be you in your story, always in kind of like a white savior sense or a slave narrative or the help. And so I think allowing the youth to recognize that these are the things that are happening, and not to say that these stories don't need to be told. I think that when it becomes apparent that it's the same type of people that are writing these things, that we need an insight on as well. From a film standpoint, what we are seeing a lot of is the room is filled, from the producers down to the writers, and everyone is white. There's no person of color there to help them essentially decipher what should be in that storyline and what shouldn't. And so just being able to include a lot more Black and brown people in these discussions, I think will help with that narrative as well.
If I could add to what Sharika was saying, first of all, I totally agree. And one of the first steps to breaking that glass ceiling is getting Black and brown youth experience. And so that they can go up and not just say, hello, I'd like a job here, but say, I know how to do exactly what my white counterpart can do. I've touched a red camera. I know how to edit in Adobe Premiere. I've spoken on panels, you know, all those things that prepare them so that they can come in with confidence and say that I'm not just deserving of this because this is my narrative and I'm the only person suited to tell this story, but I also have that professional language backing me so that when they enter into the room, they have that behind them, because that's really where we are in society, is that more and more we're seeing new stories coming up. We're seeing Amazon Prime and Hulu taking on narratives that we never would have seen 30, 40 years ago. And so how we prepare youth to start entering into that field is giving them the experience now. My first job at NYU was Stern Video Generalist. And if I hadn't had a resume like this from Wide Angle, just from all the different things I had done with them, I would have never been able to apply to that job and get the experience, so that now I come out of college with a college job. So it really is a domino effect when you think of how we can start preparing them now with just giving them, even Wide Angle's now just showing people how to edit using free online programs and just giving them those skills so that they feel secure in creating a video reel and applying to those positions that would usually be X'd off for them just because they don't have the experience.
Yeah, I would like to add to that as well from my own personal experience. Just like you said, Destiny, a lot of these opportunities I didn't get until I got into college. And so having to work part-time, take all of those credits, you don't have much of that opportunity when you're focused coming, from a middle-class Black family, coming into this whole new world. I was first generation to go to school in my family. And so a lot of my experience was learned on my own. And so having to navigate this whole new life and not really, being able to talk to anybody about it, that's what I try to push on my kids as well, is that there's this door where you guys can use these skills. It's not just something that, you have to do because your mom wants you to join this, nice, cool organization after school, but that you can use these skills for you in the future. And it's kind of like that head start that I didn't have, that I wish I had it, kind of having to start a little bit later after, grad school and such. And so if I would have just had these quick little opportunities in high school or before college, it kind of would have got me into doors a little bit quicker.
Awesome. Bobby, yeah, please add in.
I'm of the understanding that when we look at the structure and the ideology of white supremacy, media is performing as it always have performed. The author Tom Burrell wrote a book years ago called Brainwash, where he chronicled and lays out the intentional campaign of media campaign, longstanding history of racial stereotypes, images, stories, etc., meant to degrade Black folks. And in that vein, in that sense, particularly given this example, Black newspapers, such as the Baltimore Afro newspaper here in Baltimore, or the Chicago Defender in Chicago, Black-owned newspapers had to be established and published to address the issues impacting our community, particularly when you look at the lynchings that were happening down south that folks weren't reporting on. So it was incumbent, it was a necessity for Black folks to establish their own newspapers, to tell their stories of their community. I'm only continuing tradition with Reflection of Kings, because white supremacy has only left me with three options: to build, sustain, protect. I'm gonna say this again: to build, sustain, protect. I'm only left to build institutions in my community, sustain those institutions in the community, and protect outside forces from tearing down those institutions in my community. They are the only choices I have left. With that, I am only continuing, like I said, tradition. Resistance and being Black in America is a matter of tradition. It's not a fun activity. It's not an after-school project. It's survival. And when you're looking at it from that lens, I cannot be concerned too much with what outside folks are doing, outside forces are doing, media institutions, because the only response is, just as folks talked about, creating your own. I cannot expect someone to tell my story. And I'm orientating and socializing Black boys the power of telling their own stories by putting a camera in their hand, putting a microphone in their hand. They are the only options I have left: build, sustain, protect.
That's powerful. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for that.
Ooh, I got chills with that, Bobby. I really did. Can you put that in the chat box as well, for those who are more visual learners, about the 3 key components? So for our young people, this is kind of going off what Destiny had shared about she wouldn't have gotten the position in school at NYU if she didn't learn all this in the organization that she was part of. So share with us, right? What are your favorite things that you learned so far, and some useful things that you've learned with your respective organizations? Let's start off with Jabril. You were kind of sharing a little bit too about Reflection of Kings, so share some more, Jabril.
What I learned from Reflection of Kings, at first I didn't know how to because we deal with cameras and stuff. I didn't know how to operate the cameras, take pictures on. I know how to take pictures on my phone, but on the actual camera, take actual pictures on. I didn't know how to operate one of them. And then I never knew how we be interviewing people. I never knew how to do that. And so from that, I never knew how to explain the topic well enough. And then when I started going to Reflection of Kings, I got more used to doing that.
Nice. Kamani, what have you learned so far?
One thing that I've learned at Gandhi Brigade Youth Media was how to write like scripts for videos, because we do videos about like social justice topics. And I had to, like, I've made videos before, like, you know, just like casually, like a funny video or two. But here I had to like actually tap into and learn this creative process on how to make the topic seem interesting and you keep wanting to watch the video that I'm making, and this just making the script flow. And I'm getting, well, yeah, I am getting better and better at that.
That's awesome too. Janae?
So through Wide Angle, I learned quite a lot in a small amount of time. So photography on my smartphone, event planning, and like that's the whole like shebang. We learned how to do virtual backgrounds and sending professional emails, and voiceover work, which was something cool that I can take with me in my future, and just building my art portfolio and taking clips for videos and filmmaking, editing, all of that. But outside of what I learned artistically, Miss Destiny has been a big help in my journey preparing as an adult, going to college, by just being there for college essays, or like learning how to send a professional email, and just learning from her experience and taking that with me. And those are things that I'll keep with me and pass down to other people who are in the position that need it.
No, that's awesome. I'm living vicariously through each 3 of y'all. Kind of what Sharika was saying, you know, wanting to learn all this at a certain age, right? When you're in high school, a little bit younger. I'm an immigrant myself, so it was always that conversation of, you can't get into the media field, you know, and et cetera, because it's not going to bring you the bucks. And so doctor this and lawyer that. So again, like photography is my own hobby, and I'm living vicariously through you all. And I have to connect to each one of you guys because you're going to teach me now. And I'm going to ask another follow-up question, similar to what we're asking about earlier. But what are some issues that are important to you that are not being talked about? This is for our young people.
I can just go some issues going on in this, like, I guess, country is homelessness, people being homeless, and there's not really enough attention. Whoa, I just switched out. There's not really enough attention to people homeless in this country, and it's really sad to see people who don't have as much as you, and you can help them, but this community and country isn't doing a whole lot about it, and I feel like it should be changed.
One issue now that I think we should focus on is education. And also, we're still in a pandemic, and we've been in a pandemic for a while, and there's a disconnect and a large gap between people of color and what they have access to, whether it's just getting a test to find out if you even have been exposed to COVID, to like the treatment once you're actually in a hospital. That's very different, and access to vaccines. But also with that, education has pretty much fell apart for all of youth, and trying to learn through a computer you've tackled difficulties along the way, because you're taking this system that was meant for it to be in person and like using the same system to apply it to something different. It's not going to work that way because it's not built for that in the first place. And you see all the challenges, like just getting people engaged has been terrible because the system that we're using is currently not working. And I know for me and the students that I've spoken to, we've given suggestions for how to fix these things, but nothing has been happening. So I think that's a big thing to address, because we still have to learn. Life is going to go on, and we still have to adjust to the times. Like, we don't have time to stop. We have to keep going, but also make the best out of the situation and make sure that people are genuinely learning and genuinely getting what they need to continue with life.
Those are all such powerful topics, and I'm just like sitting here. I'm like, man, this is almost like a joint project that you all need to tackle. Because Janae, I mean, as a parent, as a father, watching my own kids, go through the emotional roller coaster of being in a hybrid learning environment. I'm sorry, completely virtual. They're just going back into hybrid like within the next 2 weeks. My 7-year-old and my 15-year-old, my 9th grader, right? It's just been an up and down. So I'm like, man, we need to tell some more good, bad, and ugly stories to send those to the decision makers, right? Because it's not just about not being able to be in classroom. I'm about to be in my soapbox, not just about not being able to be in the classroom, but there is a way to make the current environment better if they take feedback from young people, the end users of what's going on. So it's almost like a prime example of how, right, we can leverage, the storytelling and the power of media, which is oftentimes, to you all's point, called the fourth branch of government. I don't know if y'all have heard that nickname, but many times, I know Bobby has, the media is referred to as literally the fourth branch of government. Every bit as powerful as the president, right? The executive branch, the judicial, legislative branch, and I just drew a blank there. What's the third branch, y'all? This is a test. It's a test. Executive, legislative. I said it, judicial.
Judicial.
Yeah, the judicial branch. But the media is every bit as powerful as those other three branches. So we got to be able to wield it as individuals and groups and organizations, the same as these other folks in systems and institutions are wielding it against us, so to speak. So thank you for that, Janae.
Can I add one more quick thing?
Please,
it also
please
takes
add.
a toll on mental health. Like, we are cut off from all socialization, and there was mental health issues before, but they are spiked and increased because we're at home. We're expected to be on a computer like 8 hours a day and do homework outside of that and maintain a social life all through technology. And it's quite honestly, it's bad. And it takes a toll on your mental health, anxiety, and people just being cut off from normal life. And there should be more resources to help people cope and deal with mental health issues in a positive way while we're at home and still experience a pandemic. Because people, not just school, but there's people's family members directly affected by COVID as well. Like, people are still getting sick, and we're still expected to like put a smile on our face and continue things as they were before, and it's not working.
Like, everything is, I'm telling y'all, we throwing it out there right now. Reflection of Kings, GB, Wide Angle. This the next project. We gotta like, we gotta fire some folks up. But I ain't gonna go down that rabbit hole. Let's keep the conversation going. Please.
Jabril, an opportunity to share. Jabril, what are some issues that are important to you that are not being talked about?
I feel as though some issues that are important to me. So in the education system, like Baltimore City schools in general, it's the certain things that we learn. We learn about people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks, but they not basic people, but they just people everybody learn about. I feel like more stories than just them three people. I feel, because I watched the Judas and the Black Messiah movie, and I learned about the Fred Hampton movie. I learned about Fred. I ain't know nothing about him. I never heard of him before that movie. And I feel as though we should have more stuff like that so that you can know more about our ancestors, our other people, these civil rights activists that have done a lot for the community too, because a lot of it's hidden. And with the Fred Hampton story, he was 21 years old when he was killed because he felt he was just going to uprise the Black community. And I feel as though we find out more people like that, we can uprise the Black community more, inspire more youth and more people to do stuff like how Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, and all them was doing too.
Thank you, y'all. I can't wait to see the documentaries you guys create in a few years from now. I'm so serious about that.
Excellent point. Thank you so much for that, Jabril. I just watched it with our two oldest boys just this past weekend. They had the exact same reaction. And as a matter of fact, we even had an internal conversation as a Maryland Mentor team, Judas and the Black Messiah, Jennifer, about the Fred Hampton, Chairman Fred Hampton from the Illinois Black Panther Party. Oh my God. An absolutely amazing piece of work. Thank you so much for lifting that up, Jabril. As we continue on, we move in, starting to move to a close here. Back to our adult panelists. We told y'all audience this was going to be an amazing conversation. Hopefully y'all are getting into this. But we want to be able to start leaving some actionable tips and tidbits, right, for our audience members. So kind of want you guys to get a little nitty gritty with this question, right? And that is, what are some of the specific things that each of your organizations do in order to center youth voices and narrative change as a means, right, to disrupt some of these systems and to start having some of these, tough conversations, essentially? What specifically are you all doing?
Can start.
Yeah, Destiny, I'm about to say, come on,
yeah,
y'all
sure.
playing, come on.
So at Wide Angle's core, we are a youth-led, youth-driven, and youth-centered organization, and we implement that in every aspect of our programs, from the virtual event planning class, them choosing the themes and delving into history and choosing to take ownership of their own curriculum in that way, to MediaWorks, where they determine what topics they want to explore. And it becomes our jobs as instructors to educate ourselves and prepare ourselves for whatever they want to do. And so we really allow the youth to take the lead. And in that way, we always stay true to their narrative because they're deriving it. And so I feel like that's the simplest step, is just ask them. And I guarantee youth will have an answer because they're observant. They're in this world too, and they experience the same things that adults are going through. It's just that the adults are the only ones that are making the decisions. We are all living through it though. And so it's just about changing the notion that we have to have this plan and apply it to youth and have them fit within the curriculum, but really deriving that from the youth and supporting them moving forward.
No, Destiny, that is so powerful. Thank you for lifting that up. I actually want to go back to the very first part that you opened up with in terms of Wide Angle being youth-led, youth-centered. Those are different though. Youth-led and youth-centered, and there was a third one that you threw out there as well. But those are almost all different. So I would love for you to even break down for the audience a little bit, like, what is the difference in being youth-led and youth-centered, versus youth-focused or youth-driven, because there's a lot of controversy and confusion, I think, about those.
Yeah, sure. So we serve youth. So we're serving youth. And so we center our mission and our goal around making sure that we're serving Baltimore City population of youth. But also taking that one step further is that we allow them to take ownership of what media they're creating, what stories they want to tell, what tools they want to use to derive that, using graphic design or media. And so it takes that mission of caring about the youth and wanting to do something for them one step further by allowing them to take ownership of them themselves, because then that extends outside of the media curriculum. It extends out so that they feel empowered to advocate for their schools, advocate for their communities. I led my first protest when I was a part of White Angle. And I called my executive producer up and he was like, we're bringing the cameras, you tell us what you need and we got you. And so that's what that means when it's youth led, is that you let them take the lead and you follow, because I think that that's so important in leadership, is that you're also the same way that you're an excellent leader. The best leaders are the best followers as well. And so allowing youth to take the lead is that distinction.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. That was dope. Sharika, Bobby, we talking again about what specific things are you all doing, right, that could potentially be integrated and leveraged by some of our audience members? What specific things are you all doing in your programs to, again, continue to center youth voices and narrative as a means to, to upend some of these broken systems?
Yeah, I can go.
Please.
So similar to Destiny, GB Youth Media does the same thing. So we're based out of Silver Spring, Maryland, and we teach youth and young adults as far as how to do graphic design, film, and photography surrounding the different social justice issues, whether it's happening locally or worldwide. And yeah, just being youth-led, or doing, prompts with them. I feel like a lot of my teaching, the way I teach is teaching them things that I didn't learn about. I come from an art historical approach from my background in education. And so a lot of the work that I had to do, especially in the education system, was teaching myself, whether I had questions about certain things. And I think that's what I try to lead the students with as well, is I had so many questions about, well, why aren't we seeing this? Or why aren't we seeing Black Africans depicted as this, other than, the help or servants? And so I try to open the door for them to ask their own questions. And whether I can answer it for them or not, I think anyone, especially the youth, should be able to question the teacher. You should be able to, everything that I'm saying is not Bible. And I don't think that anybody should take what information they're getting from someone as fact. And they should always ask questions. And I think that's what I'm learning from my students as well. I'm trying to teach them, but they are also teaching me, is just by giving them the opportunity to tell me about things that are happening back home. I have a student who is very heavily focused on a lot of their work, bringing attention to the humanitarian crisis in Venezuela. And so I think by allowing them to talk about the issues that are important to them, will not only be able to, one, teach me about the things that I don't know about, and certain issues, but also giving them that inspiration to create the work. Because I know for anyone who is an artist, it is extremely hard to be told you need to do this assignment, and it's nothing that you're interested in. It's not going to be something that you want to stick with. And so just by giving them a little push to a different topic of their choice, I think that opens the door to all types of creativity.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Bobby, please.
For Reflection of Kings, we serve boys ages 10 to 14 years of age. That's, of course, very young. We're talking about, 5th grade to, 8th grade or freshman year of high school. And we're tackling some very complicated issues that are impacting and shaping our society, and understanding in a lot of ways, as Jabril talked about, that our American education system, the curriculum has been whitewashed, right? So there's a lot that has been missed from a lot of our babies. So in Reflection of Kings, we are intentional about just introducing these ideas, such as police accountability, racial disparities during the pandemic, food apartheid, and just that key term right there I just used, food apartheid, not saying food deserts, as we've become accustomed to. Food apartheid is recognizing that we have a food system that's segregated, that we have communities in itself that are segregated, and that have been divested in by these systems, these oppressive systems. So first, introducing these concepts that by and large we don't do within your typical structured school setting. And I feel like that's very important in terms of if you're going to teach youth how to cover these issues, got to teach them about the issues and how it impacts them, how it impacts their parents, how it impacts their grandparents. Like especially when you talk about systemic issues. And I think it's important for any program, professional organization who works with youth, to not look at this as social justice as a cute little project, because you're doing a disservice to your youth's identity. You're doing a disservice to the identity and the lineage and the heritage of their families at that point. And I tell folks, quick, fast, and hurry, Reflection of Kings is not the Mickey Mouse Club. We have tough conversations with our boys that challenges them intentionally, and having a safe space for Black boys to have difficult conversations, having a safe space for Black boys to be heard. So I believe they are critical components to our work.
Man, that's powerful. I just pass it. I don't have anything to add, man. These are such powerful thought-provoking responses, and I'm just listening for that common thread that has been really throughout all of you all speaking, our youth panelists, our adult panelists, this idea of, again, social justice and social action being baked into the DNA of each one of you all's organizations. And I take it by extension to our audience members that is something that we should strongly consider, not just, to Bobby's point, as a flavor of the month, an in vogue for this particular grant opportunity, but for the future and critical consciousness of our young people. We've got to bake this into our work, and we have to make it a part of our full-time efforts to socialize our young people, to have a critical eye and to see themselves as part of something that's larger than themselves, something that they have responsibility to and a part to play in. I think is just so critical. I think you all have really done that. Sada, I think you're going to give our young people the last word before we wrap this thing up and move on.
Yeah. It's kind of going off what Bobby was saying about just impact, right? So intent versus impact. We understand that most of our organizations, when they share stories of our youth, it may not be from the narrative of our youth, right? And now that's what we're trying to change that approach. So for our young people, this question's for you guys. How can organization leaders better support you in telling your own story? To start off with Janae.
Okay. I think adults can be support systems. I think when you have a class and you're teaching youth, a lot of the times you assign them what you want to see. It's like, well, I want you to paint this, but I want you to paint a house, instead of letting them paint what they want to paint. So I think instead of telling me what to do, allow me the tools and give me the space to do the things that I want to share and the things that mean most to me. So I paint the picture that I want to see, instead of what you want to grade me on or what you assign to me as what you deem important. And me being able to go to you along the way for assistance or help is great. But ultimately, I choose the curriculum and I choose the path I want to take.
Thank you, Janae. Jabril, how can organization leaders better support you telling your own story?
I don't really have nothing to say. Janae had really summed it all up. I don't really have nothing to say. I completely agree with what she has said.
Thank you, Jabril. Kamani, would you like to add any last words?
How they could better support us.
Yeah, Yeah, so how can leaders of organizations support you in telling your own story?
One, yeah, I mean, Janae did sum up a lot of it. It was very good. But one thing I think that could happen was whenever students come into an organization, they would be able to share their stories, their background, their abilities, where they come from to everybody else before they all start. So no one makes any like assumptions, everything, and everybody can understand if anything like happens based on their story.
Thank you all.
That's powerful. Please give all of our panelists a round of applause. Feel free. This is the only time we're gonna say everybody unmute
Unmute
yourself.
yourself, y'all.
That's right. Unmute yourself. Make some noise for this panelist, y'all. That was powerful. Especially shout out because I know these adult panelists have done panels before, but especially to our youth panelists. No shade to the adult panelists. Destiny, you like in the middle, so I'm gonna shout you out right now here as well. But shout out to them. Please give them some extra love because it takes courage. Again, I don't care who you are, how many times you've done it. It takes courage to tell your story, to be vulnerable, to share what you like, what you don't like. So again, let's make some noise. Not for real. Let's make some noise for these young people though.
Yeah.
All right.
Great job.
Nice. All right, so we're gonna let's share this screen one more again, and we're gonna pass it back to Sada. Oh, you know what? As a matter of fact, I'm sorry. Before we pass it to Sada, because the next thing that we want to do after this to our audience members is we actually want to display some examples because we wanted to make this as actionable and as useful for you all as possible. So we actually have some examples from these amazing organizations. So you can actually see some of their work, like what does it actually look like? But before that, before we moved on, we wanted to offer you all some questions for reflection as audience members. And feel free to actually, after you read through these, to just drop some responses in the chat box. But here are the questions. Are your young people and their family privy to what's written in applications to funders or about them? Why or why not? Because as we talk about the power that individual organizations and you all as leaders have right now, this is a big part of it. How do we write about the people that we serve or that we purport to serve? This is a big deal. And this question, again, staying on the appropriation side and given proper citation and credit, this question came to us via one of our Moving Towards Liberation cohort members. We were having a discussion about socialization and the role of organizations in a larger ecosystem. And they asked this question and blew us away. Like, man, why don't we share what's written in grant applications with those that we write them about? Number two, now that you understand the importance of owning your own story, how do you plan on incorporating your young people in this process or to ensure that they're part of this process? Again, not just youth-centered. Again, amazing example just now by Janae, the whole house painting deal, but youth-led, right? How do we transition to youth-led? And then lastly, how are your organizations currently telling stories? Again, to include or about young people and families, et cetera. So these are just some questions for you all to think about and to sit with for a little bit as we move on. Sada?
Great, yeah, thank you, Sadiq. And if you didn't have an opportunity to look at those questions, these PowerPoint slides will be shared along with the recording as an email. So today, okay, we have some media examples that we would like to share from our three organizations. First off, from Bobby, son of a dream, Reflection of Kings. We're going to be sharing this first video. Before we do, Bobby, can you say some words about it?
Sure. Back in January, we invited Justin Nally, who is a policy analyst for the ACLU of Maryland, to come speak to the boys about the legislative process. Right now in the state of Maryland, we have the legislative session going on, the 2021 legislative session. And so Justin came to talk about the legislative process, as well as talk about a bill that's being proposed called the Juvenile Interrogation Protection Act, which, if passed, will prohibit the police from questioning youth, interrogating youth without first notifying their parents, and also attorney being present. For those who, to put it in the context, just think about the Exonerated Five, or what was also known as the Central Park Five, and what those young brothers experienced years ago with their interaction with the police. So this will prohibit Maryland law enforcement from talking to them without notifying their parents. So what we did was we had the boys to create videos in support of the bill. And we also collaborated with the ACLU of Maryland, created one video where the boys expressing their support.
Awesome. So we're gonna cross our fingers and hopefully my audio works here. So let's try this real quick. Let's try. Can you guys hear this?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Bobby Marvin Holmes, co-founder of Reflection of Kings. I support the Juvenile Interrogation Protection Act because I believe our children's rights mattered, and they should feel supported if being questioned by law enforcement.
Hi, my name is Gabriel Stewart, and I am with the Reflection of Kings, and I support this bill because if the police officer comes and asks me a question, I'll feel unsafe about my mom.
My name is Deontay with Reflection of Kings, and I support the Juvenile Interrogation Protection Act because I want to stop children from getting manipulated.
Hi, my name is Tyler. I'm with Reflection of Kings, and I support the Juvenile Protective Act because kids should have rights too.
Hello, my name is Julian Washington, and I'm with the Reflection of Kings, and I support the Juvenile Interrogation Protection Act because I want to keep children safe.
I'm Lavar from Reflection of Kings, and I support the Juvenile Interrogation Protection Act because I think children's lives matter to internet safety. I think that parents should be alerted when they're across the cops.
Hi, I'm Chef from.
Okay. So that's just a little bit of an overview for that. Can you all still see the slide? Is the slide back up?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect.
And again, all these links will be included, folks. So we're just showing just a little taste.
Exactly. Next up, we have Wide Angle Youth Media, and Destiny will share a little bit about the presentation we'll share is The Hill We Climb.
Sure. So currently, my class has transitioned to virtual event planning, and our students are planning a virtual prom, which they've coined a dance through the decades, to kind of get at some of the things we were talking about today on how they feel that their education was whitewashed and that they wanted to re-delve back into history and take ownership of what they felt was important and rewrite the history books. And so moving to the current moment, we asked them, who do you think would represent you in the history books if we were talking about the current moment? And hands down, everyone in the classroom was Amanda Gorman. So as a collaborative project, we created this video where students learned to be voiceover artists, record some footage, and also use stock footage to create a collaborative video using the words from Amanda Gorman's inauguration speech.
Okay, let's see if we can go 2 for 2. All right, let's see here.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace.
And the norms and notions of what just is
isn't always just is.
And yet,
the dawn is ours.
Before we knew it,
somehow we do it.
Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken,
but simply unfinished.
And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine.
But that doesn't mean
we are striving to form a union that is
is perfect.
We are striving to forge a union with purpose.
To compose a country
committed to all cultures,
colors, characters, and conditions of man.
And so we lift our gazes
not to what stands between us,
but what stands before us.
We close the divide
because we know to put our future first.
We must first put our differences aside.
Let the globe,
if nothing else,
say this is true.
That even as we create,
we grew.
That even as we heard.
All right, see, this is also, y'all go back and watch the full videos, y'all.
Little snippet there. And last but not least, we have Sharika going to share the fight to preserve African-American cemeteries from GBYM.
Yes, so we are currently in the process of redoing the film because we unfortunately had, with COVID happening last year, we had to shut the production down quicker than we hoped. But the film pretty much just focuses and it highlights the injustice we face not only in life, but also in death. And so it's talking about the county's decision on expanding the Beltway further into the cemetery, and it is already split down. So the cemetery is split between the highway and they are trying to expand it more. So this kind of gives you a glimpse of the families and their fight to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you all. We have a request too. If everyone, our panelists, can please drop your social media, your IG, your YouTubes, Twitter, etc. in the chat box for folks. Let's get those follows up so y'all can see real time what some dope work looks like. So please drop that in the chat box.
This is my grandmother right here. And this is my uncle there, and my father's is in here somewhere, and I'm trying to locate it right now. Well, we're trying to clean up the cemetery because the Beltway is coming in. They want to put in a few more lanes. And if they put a few more lanes in, they're going to come in about 20 yards to 100 yards into the cemetery. And we're trying to preserve the cemetery.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you all so much. Man.
No, I'm so glad you guys chose these specific ones to share out with us, because this is what we've been talking about, right? It's sharing these stories that we have not heard of or heard about. So this is an opportunity for our audience today just to look at these videos and to share out these stories to others who haven't heard this. So share these links with your peers and your family. Again, thank you for all the organizations, GB Youth Media, Wide Angle, Reflections of Kings.
All right. So as we move towards conclusion, don't leave yet, y'all. Don't leave yet. We got 7 minutes left. We're not going to go over. We promise. We're not going to go over. But these last couple of moments, we wanted to leave you all with some, again, just some different ideas and potential calls to action, right? Like some things that you all could potentially do walking out of here today. So youth storytelling calls to action. And again, a lot of these are almost directly in line with what we heard today from our, again, amazing panelists. But having these conversations early, being intentional in addressing social justice issues. Bobby said it, this is not the Mickey Mouse Club. Like these are very, very serious topics and serious issues that deserve our undivided attention. And it's not gonna happen overnight, but we have to start identifying conversations and not just surface items. And how are you baking these ideas into your programming year round? Again, not just for this moment, but being a part of this overall movement that we're all a part of. Organizations can rededicate any platforms they have to the youth's voices. Like, are there regular takeovers of your newsletter? Do folks even see your newsletter, your website, your social media, your public meetings, etc.? But having youth voices throughout the entire process. And again, organizations making sure that powerful people, right, receive and respond to these stories. And we just saw some of these, again, just amazing examples. Reviewing these storytelling examples, again, in depth from the panelists, and then even from Maryland Mentor, which most recently we had the opportunity to collaborate with our local NPR affiliate, WYPR, and Aaron Hankin to do a special episode of his Out of the Blocks podcast, which we can drop the link in the chat box as well. But just had an opportunity to just sit down with an amazing group of young people last summer. We recorded outside, and again, just gave them the microphone. Asked them just some simple questions and just let them tell their stories about whatever they wanted to talk about, with no parameters, like, no, this is off limits, or no, that's too much. Tell us what you want to share, what you feel comfortable in sharing. And it was an amazing product that we ended up getting out of that. And they were pleased because, of course, they got the first edition. We weren't going to publish anything without them, but it was just powerful. Using those gut check questions, right? How would our parents feel? How would the youth feel? Is this ethical? Is this narrative appropriation? Consider media and storytelling training from one of these organizations. Reach out to GB Youth Media. Reach out to Wide Angle. Reach out to Reflection of Kings. Have them work with your programs. You don't have to create an entire media arm in your individual organizations, but man, these programs specialize in it. Write some contracts for these organizations, right? And then consider creating a youth media council at your program to almost oversee your messaging and to create some new messaging, et cetera. So again, these are just some of the ideas that that hopefully we wanted to share with you all, and that made sense. And Sada, take us home.
Thank you again so much for our organizations, our adults and our young folks. So I was seeing a lot of great comments in the chat box, but we want to know more in this evaluation. So we got 3 more minutes, right? And it shouldn't take you longer than 3 minutes to complete this evaluation. Again, like I said earlier, right, we really go through these evaluations to see what y'all want to see in the future, and just to get more insight about what you felt about today's presentation. And we do share the evaluation with our presenters so that they can also, just be reflective of what y'all are sharing. So everything you're sharing in the chat box, go into that link I'm just sharing right now and input that all into the evaluation. As y'all completing that evaluation, next slide, we have some upcoming trainings. Our next one is going to happen on March 26th, Risk Management Essentials for Mentoring Programs. Our own Vista Dakota Shamblin will be running that one, so be sure to register for that ASAP. Our next one is Evaluation Basics for Mentoring Programs. This one will be ran by our TA consultant, Dr. Michelle Kaufman. And our last training for spring is Best Practices for Group Mentoring, and Sadiq will be running this one on April 20th. Again, y'all can go to our website to register for any of these trainings. But before you even register, please go to the evaluation link and start filling that survey out. And if there are any last questions, we got 2 more minutes on the clock. Feel free to unmute yourself or drop that into the chat box while our panelists are still here.
Or comments for our amazing panelists.
I actually do have a comment. First of all, I just want to say thank you for everyone for taking out the time. It was very nice outside, but we are here and doing some great work. So thank you for being here and being present. But for the youth, especially, because I couldn't imagine some of the questions that were asked and some of the depth that you went into was very encouraging. Jabril, I 100% agree about the history that we need to learn about. I feel like we were doing a lot with Black history without youth, and all they could keep saying was Barack Obama and Martin Luther King. And granted, those are great individuals, but there's more to our history than that. We have a lot of local history that we don't really take part in. Like Baltimore has a lot of rich history, especially in the arts and culture field, that a lot of our kids don't even know exist, or that some of the trends now have been started right here in their hometown. So I just want to just say to continue the great work that you're doing in your organizations and beyond, as well as the adults continue pouring into our youth, because they are the future. They're going to be taking care of us. Whether we like it or not, they're going to be the ones who are going to make a difference in the decisions that will affect us now and later. Also, Janae, I 100% agree with 100% giving youth creativity over everything, giving them that leadership skills, giving them a blank canvas, whether it be a metaphorical canvas or a actual physical canvas, and allowing them to be able to paint their own picture, because their picture is the one that is going to matter. Kamani, great work with you talking about your rights as a human, not just what your culture is, but as a human being. You are a human being, and you are as smart as us. You are as talented as us. And I'm glad that you know that, and you are fighting for your rights as well as other youth who and being a voice for those youth of change. So great job, everyone, today. I was very inspired and thankful that my job sent us this training, because I wouldn't know about it. So thank you, thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Antonella. Great seeing you as well. We got an amazing question here. Again, this is really like the after session. Folks, thank you so much for being here. But if our panelists can stick around, we got some amazing questions here in the chat box. We want to ask our youth panelists really, really quickly, and then we'll wrap this thing up officially. But do you feel media takeovers are well received, like when youth or students lead to social media for a time frame? To our youth panelists, what are y'all's thoughts on that? I have some thoughts, but I want to hear y'all.
I think takeovers, they can be hit or miss. For me, for the most part, a lot of the times they're a miss, because sometimes it's just the youth join to push things that, you know, are already things that they posted before, or, you know, sometimes it's just pushing the same information that an adult could have done. But if it's used as a way to like help push the youth and the things that they want to share, and they have full control over what they're like, you know, advertising, then I think they can be successful. It just depends on the content and what you're asking them to advertise. If it's something they're really passionate about and really want to share, then I think they can be engaging, because, you know, they're going to find ways to make it interesting and eye-catching if they really care about what they're advertising.
Yeah, I have some feedback on that as well if no one else has anything to say, so I'll wait.
Jabril, Kamani?
I don't have anything to say about it. I'm still taking it, trying to think of a response.
Oh, I don't have nothing to say either.
Okay. I've done several different internships at some different museums in DC. And when I've done Instagram takeovers or social media takeovers, I found the experience to be nice, just because it allows you to show the public what it is that you're doing for that specific position. So I was an education intern at the National Gallery of Art, and I was able to show other people who were interested in the program for the future what it is that could be doing, what I was doing on my full day, who I was able to meet, who I was able to see. And I think it kind of highlights your experience. You can, you know, give a little briefing on who you are, what your goals are, if you're going to school, things like that. And then it does allow other people to say like, oh, that looks awesome. I would like to do that as well.
That's amazing. And with that, we will sign off. Thank you all so much for being with us. Again, once again, shout out to beautiful baby there, Desiree. Shout out to our panelists. We'll be in touch very, very soon. Make sure that you subscribe to the Maryland Mentor newsletter. We did not drop that in the chat box, so that way you all can stay in touch and stay abreast of our next trainings and sessions, etc. And happy Wednesday.
All links will be shared in the follow-up email, including the newsletter, our upcoming trainings, our wonderful videos that our organizations shared today. So everything will be there for y'all.
Happy Wednesday, y'all. Peace and blessings.
Enjoy the sun. Go outside, y'all, with the mask.
This was so great. Thank you guys so much. Learned a lot.
Thank you.